Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Brever, and alongside me is Logan Camden. And today we are going to be discussing all of the NFL Week 8 action from this Sunday, starting with probably the most surprising result of the day. Maybe not in a vacuum, but just considering the trend that we have seen here, Logan. The 49ers, who 5 games deep in the NFL season looked like the juggernaut, unquestionably the team to beat, have now dropped 3 straight after losing to Cincinnati today. How worried are you about them?
I'm pretty worried about the Niners and just as them as real contenders. You know what I mean, Carson? This team has shown us they have a reliable formula to victory. They really establish the run. Their defense dominates, and their O-line gives them great protection up front. The Niners have shown us, though, that they really struggle to win games when coming from behind, especially in the fourth quarter, though. The Niners are winless when trailing by 8 or more points going into the fourth quarter under Shanahan. I think that you can attribute that to one really key fact, Carson, and that's that they really have not had a great quarterback under center, right? Traditionally, when you're winning games like that, it's when your quarterback can put the team on his back, lead them from behind, and make big drives, make big plays really quickly. The Niners haven't had that luxury under Shanahan. You've got Jimmy Garoppolo. You've got Brock Purdy. All their QBs under center aren't guys that are great in playing from behind, in structure. They can control the game. But on the other side of the football, you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, probably the best QB wideout duo in all of football, and they can make those explosive plays happen. I don't know why we acted like we forgot about Burrow, man. I expected this to happen at some point during the season. And Brock Purdy single-handedly cost the Niners in this one, Carson. They're not built to come back from games, and they're especially not built to come back when you shoot yourself in the foot. That was a soul-crushing interception in the end zone. I really like the Niners, man. I like them a lot. And a guy I was really critical of earlier in the year, Jermaine Pratt, makes a huge play. Play-action fake. They've marched 80 yards down there to get the end zone. It seems like a given they're going to tie this football game up. And Purdy just takes like an extra 3 to 4 seconds to get rid of that ball, man. All the time they bought on the play-action fake, it allowed the linebackers and the D-line to react and go, oh, it's a passing play. So Pratt jumps in there, makes one of the most amazing interceptions I've seen. Getting into that lane with his arm. Granted, a little bit is that on Purdy taking his extra time, but great reaction from him. And then, you think, the Niners' boat is sinking here. They get the ball immediately back off a Jamar Chase fumble, right back out there, interception straight to Logan Wilson, arguably worse than Pratt. This wasn't a horrible overall game from Purdy. I thought we saw a lot of creation from him outside of the pocket. He was scrambling well. He was buying extra time when the pressure got home. I was really impressed with that aspect of the game, but he makes 2 crucial mistakes that completely sink the Niners ship in this one. Carson, I'm not out on the Niners as contenders by any means, but they've shown us that they are really one-dimensional. They have one plan to victory every week, and that's by playing mistake-free, nearly perfect football. This is just not a team that is built to come back in games and come back from deficits, and it seems like they have to play perfect. Brock Purdy's not that guy that's going to lead them over the hump and come back and make all these crazy plays. They have to play Niner football. They didn't today, and he shot them in the foot, single-handedly cost them this one.
Yeah, I'm definitely worried about the Niners because they cannot win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy playing like this. And part of what I love about Brock is that he's not just your straight-up game manager. He has that audacity. He has that little bit of magic in him. And you see that at points in this game. You mentioned some of the creation outside the pocket. He has an awesome throw on the run early to Ayuk. He fits a couple balls into tight windows to Kittle. He's making a bunch of plays with his legs in this game, is the leading rusher for the Niners with 57 yards on the ground, has that incredible play on 3rd and 5 to bring them within a score in the fourth quarter where he avoids multiple guys trying to bring him down well behind the line of the scrimmage and then manages to throw it back across his body to Kittle. Then the next play throws back across his body to McCaffrey for a touchdown. There were some really standout good Brock moments in this game. At the same time, the really concerning trend that we have seen in the last few weeks is those back-breaking mistakes. And a lot of people have come out and said, well, some of the numbers about Purdy through the first 5 weeks lied. The fact that he hadn't thrown an interception was not reflective of the fact that he had made some turnover-worthy plays, that he had taken some of these risks that hadn't paid off. I think that that is fair to some extent. At the same time, I think that we have definitely seen him dial up some of the really bad back-breaking mistakes, and I think that happens, Logan, when he has to play in these situations from behind, when he has to try to force the issue more. And we saw it against the Vikings. He had 2 bad picks in the fourth quarter, the terrible overthrow, then he forces a ball into double coverage, ends the game. This one, he damn near has 4 turnovers. The red zone pick, the first play of the next drive, which was a terrible read right to the defender. Then when the Niners have their final chance, he throws another pick, a terrible one that is, very luckily for him, taken back because of a roughing the passer that really didn't affect the throw or the decision, and then he fumbles on the very next play anyway. So he was under some pressure in this one, but that is another issue that we've seen with Purdy. He hasn't been as composed under pressure. He has at times tried to force the issue there, and it has come back to bite him. So we are not seeing mistake-free football from Brock Purdy now at all. In fact, over these last 3 weeks, he has been one of the most mistake-prone quarterbacks in football. And sure, that's down Deebo Samuel. And yes, that's without them running the ball as effectively in the last 2 weeks as they normally do. And yes, that's without Trent Williams. But bottom line, he needs to be able to manage the game very effectively, to not make those back-breaking mistakes, and to still take advantage of the fact that he has a great offensive mind. He still has really good weapons here. And when he can't do that, the Niners just aren't a very good football team.
And that's what great quarterbacks do, Carson, in spite of the injuries, in spite of everything else not going right. Those are the football games that you win. And like we said, Purdy, I think, is great winning in structure, winning in rhythm, winning when everything else is clicking, but he's got to find a way to persevere, or I think you're right. The Niners have no chance at winning a Super Bowl. He not only has to make the big plays, but he has to play mistake-free football. We have yet to see the Niners win a game like that, Carson, and I think it is a real concern, right? You see the Eagles win today, and while the Eagles have maybe been underwhelming by their standards, they've shown us that they can win different ball games. There's been variety in their victories. They can win on the ground. They can win through the air. Hurts can have a big day. The Niners don't have that versatility in their bag. They win one style in one way, and when they can't solely dominate like that, they have yet to pull out a game like that. It's just the reality of where the Niners are at. On the other side of this, though, man, I'm really fired up about the Bengals, Carson. I don't know about you, man. I've been waiting for them to hit their stride, and I think with a few weeks of football like this, I think I'm back in on the boat. You know, this is what we expected coming into the season. Burrow and Chase just relentlessly clicking together, and it's awesome, man. Like, I don't know why they have another slow start to their season again, and everybody wants to jump off the bandwagon. Burrow is a top 3 quarterback in football. This is the best QB wideout tandem in football, and when they're in sync, again, I think it's such a staggering dynamic in between why maybe I like the Bengals more than the Niners as contenders moving forward too, because they can win with that style. I mean, hear me out. Like, they can get pressure on the quarterback. I still like their D-line. Their offensive line has been playing better over the past few weeks. I thought they played a really good one in this matchup. They were able to establish the run against the Niners. And again, the vertical dynamic of an offense is really important when it comes down to one-game scenarios, those explosive big plays that swing games. Burrow and Chase, it seems like it's always in their back pocket that they can have one of those plays that swings the tide of a game. And again, Burrow's a franchise guy, a guy that routinely makes those plays, and you can play from behind. I'm liking the Bengals more and more, man. I picked them to win the AFC North. I think that's still on the table. Between them and the Ravens, it's tough. But again, man, you just see a dynamic of the Bengals offense that can win them playoff games that the Niners don't have. That is it's not in their bag, man. They can't win games that way.
Yeah, I still think you're a bit higher on the Bengals than I am, and I think that they are mostly back. I think they're legit good again. At the same time, this is the second game this year where they've actually looked like a good football team, and another one was against the Arizona Cardinals. Like, the Seahawks game was weird, man. They put up barely 200 yards of offense, and they almost let up 400. They managed to win that game because of a couple of very untimely mistakes by Geno. Just not your real convincing win against a good football team, which this game I thought that Burrow was sensational. I thought that he was super efficient. Jamar was fantastic. T. Higgins was really good. This looked like great Bengals football. They were able to run the ball well. I don't really expect them to do that so much going forward because we've seen them struggle so much up to this point. One of the worst rushing attacks in football. This was the best their pass rush has looked, but I'm just not really willing to wipe away all the concerns that we've seen. They are absolutely trending in the right direction. I definitely think that they are a playoff team at this point, but I definitely couldn't elevate them above the Niners because, yeah, the Bengals can maybe win from behind more easily than a team like the Niners because they have that elite quarterback play. At the same time, the Niners are basically better everywhere other than the quarterback position. They have a significantly better run game. They have significantly better line plays on both sides of the ball. They have way better defensive personnel. I still think that in terms of overall skill position talent, they're both elite. You probably even give the healthy Niners the slight edge. And the Niners are going to be able to cruise by a lot of teams just on the back of that. They're not going to need Purdy to carry them in every game like they did in this one. When they do, he needs to strike the balance between creation and not making those killer mistakes. He needs to execute the offense effectively and every once in a while go out there and make a little bit of magic happen, but you can't expect him to do that 12, 15 times in a game because things are just going to go south. The Bengals, to me, are a good football team now. That is mostly on the back of a really good passing attack, as we would expect, and it's great that Joe Burrow is himself. Again, that's the most important thing. But they're still, to me, just not the most talented all-around football team, and I am still the lowest on them of these last couple years. Lower on them than last year still, for me.
Do you prefer them to the Jaguars?
Ooh, that's interesting. I would still slightly prefer the Jags. I think that defense has shown us a little bit more. I trust them to run the ball a little bit more. That's another team that hasn't really had a ton of dominant performances, but I do think that they've been more steady up to this point, and I think that they have a little bit more all-around talent. So, good for Cincy. To me, this is even more about the Niners, though. You just can't overlook such a concerning trend from a football team that looked so dominant. Really felt like they were head and shoulders above the rest of the league after that dominant win over the Cowboys. But another team that has been firmly in that conversation for best in football that also had a disappointing loss today is the Kansas City Chiefs, Logan, who put up 9 points on the Denver Broncos, lose to them for the first time in 8 years. Lots of first in Patrick Mahomes' career today. It was his first ever road loss to an AFC West opponent. It was his first ever loss to a team multiple games under 500. How worried are you about this loss for the Chiefs?
You know, I'm not worried about the Chiefs overall for a few reasons. One, they have Patrick Mahomes, who is the greatest QB talent I've ever seen. Any game you have Patrick Mahomes, you're probably going to win. You know, that's what the track record says. I am concerned about the receiving talent, though, and how much it limits Mahomes, though, Carson. You know, I know people are going to look at the numbers, and the turnovers are bad in this game. You know, Mahomes has 3 of them, 2 interceptions and the fumble. Yeah, Mahomes played a bad game. That's undeniable in this one. But what I'm more concerned about is just consistently how many plays the wideouts just don't make. Rashee Rice has a crippling drop in this one. Sky Moore, I mean, just goes through his hands. Like, is Sky Moore an NFL talent, man? Like, we just need a guy who can catch the ball, who can hold on to it. MVS has a fumble in this game. I mean, look, man, Mahomes can be the best QB ever. He can't catch the damn ball, too, dude. They just have to pull their weight. Like, they left a lot of points on the board in this one. And, again, the Chiefs just gift-wrapped this game to Kansas City. The MVS fumble, the bad interception by Pat to McMillan on the attempt at Kelsey, the fumble, the muff punt. Mahomes played a bad game, but a lot of this is on the receiving talent too. And I think the Broncos played their best game of the season and well above their standards. The defense finally shows up, makes all those big plays. They got the number 31 defense coming into this game, allowing 31 a game. Again, they allowed 9 in this one. They stopped him in the red zone a couple of times. They forced, again, the 5 turnovers. And I thought Russell Wilson made plays. Like, this is not a resounding, great Russell Wilson game. He goes for 114 yards and he fumbles twice. But he gets him in the end zone 3 times. To me, this is a one-off game. The Chiefs couldn't ever find their footing or their momentum. And that matters, man. Like, when you're just... it's just always looming. It's like it's one of those games where you just have a black cloud over your head. Even when the Chiefs would get 2 to 3 plays in rhythm, here comes that turnover. They gift wrap on this one to the Broncos. I'm not worried about the Chiefs, but I wonder. We've got 2 more days, Carson, before the trade deadline, before they, teams can't make moves. I would maybe go searching for a wideout. I don't know who it is. There's so many wideouts in the NFL. I would go out and find a reliable number 2 for Kelsey, because I think that's the glaringly biggest weakness and need on this Chiefs roster.
I do love how Rashee Rice has been playing lately overall. Yes, he does have a terrible drop in this game, but he's been really productive in recent weeks, and it's just unfortunate for the Chiefs that this comes on the back of by far their best offensive performance of the year. And I guess most teams are going to have their best offensive game against the Chargers, except for apparently the Chicago Bears, but they were really humming, and this game was anything but that. Brutal Mahomes picks. They could not finish in the red zone in this one, 0 for 3 there. And you're just not going to win a game where you have 5 turnovers, including a muffed punt return inside your own 10, courtesy of McCole Hardman, and you have the dropped Sky Moore touchdown. You're just leaving way too many points on the board. In totality, it's not like they were soundly outplayed play to play. It was just the situational stuff, those swing plays that really killed them. But long term, I'm not as concerned about that. I absolutely trust Mahomes to execute in big situations. I do think this receiving core has been trending in the right direction. Mahomes is playing with the flu in this game, another factor why he might not have been at his absolute best. But the Chiefs defense still mostly balled in this game. Like, they let up 240 total yards. They let up 3.7 yards per play. They have 6 sacks, and it's just, but Denver taking advantage of some short fields, finishing drives. Cortland Sutton made a couple of great athletic plays in this one, but I'm not really worried about the Chiefs. They're still definitely my AFC favorite. I think that this is by far the best defense Patrick Mahomes has ever had, and they continue to show us a consistency week in, week out, in terms of the pass rush and in terms of the totality of this defense that says this is an elite unit. And if you give Patrick Mahomes an elite defense with a receiving core that I still think is better than last year's, loss of Juju be damned, I think that the depth is legitimately better. This was just a bad game from a couple dudes, a couple of really unfortunate plays. I don't really need much more to be sold on the Chiefs as a bona fide contender, as my favorite in the AFC, and still very possibly as my favorite in the NFL. I don't think that there's a great team this year. I don't think that we can say that about Philly. They're the only one-loss team. They're certainly stacked in terms of talent, but there's been so many underwhelming close wins against not great teams. Kansas City, we haven't seen put it all together and decisively hum on both sides of the ball offensively like we're used to very much. San Francisco has to have fallen out of that conversation now with 3 straight losses. Dallas has had a couple of horrible losses. I just don't think that there is a dominant all-around juggernaut. And when that's the case, I'm probably going to default to the best quarterback in football who has the best defense that he's ever had.
Well said, man. I mean, it feels like through 8 weeks of football, Carson, the 2 favorites in the AFC and NFC are the 2 teams that we saw in the Super Bowl last year, the Chiefs and the Eagles. But I'm with you, dude. I don't think there's an overwhelming favorite, and that's why I think it's pretty open this year, where a lot of teams are in contention. You know, all the teams that we've mentioned in the AFC, down to the Bengals, to the Jaguars as fringe contenders. I think it's really open this year, and the Chiefs are susceptible. That being said, I think they're still my favorite in the NFL too, man. That's the Patrick Mahomes effect.
Well, we mentioned Philly in that conversation, Logan. They do end up with a win today, really neck and neck with Washington for a majority of this, but they are the only team sitting at the top of the pile at 7-1. What did you take away from this game?
This is a really good Jalen Hurts game, Carson, and one I've been waiting on. You know, he's been heavily criticized for them not putting points up. They get it done, and that's what's really encouraging about Philadelphia. And why I say they're my NFC contender. Hand up. I've had the Niners as my number 1 team in football up to this point, over the Chiefs, over the Eagles. I'll definitively move them down to 3 right now. Chiefs 1, Eagles 2. Those are my 2 favorites atop the conferences. Philly has shown us they can win in a variety of ways, and they can win shootout games, and that matters. I can't trust the Niners to win a shootout. If the offenses are clicking and everything's just humming, some games are like that. You need to just air it out and drop 4 TDs. The Eagles have done that a couple of times this year, and we know what Jalen Hurts can do. There is a drastic difference in the ability of these two teams' quarterbacks, the Niners and the Eagles. There is a huge difference between Hurts and Purdy, and that's why I would give them the nod. The skill position talent is very even between the Eagles and the Niners. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Swift, Goddard, that's a really good crew. I probably slightly prefer the Niners, but it's close. The trenches are comparable. The pressure's comparable. The defenses are. But there's a huge gap between the QB play. Hurts can win you a shootout. Hurts makes plays. That difference is just meaningful to me and matters, and that's why the Eagles are number one for me. Yeah, sure, I mean, they haven't really had convincing wins, but they've been wins. And their sole loss this year comes in, a freak loss or a game that they shouldn't have. So I think the Eagles are definitively number one for me in the NFC after this one. Sure, you'd like to put the Commanders away, but again, I'm impressed that they have been able to win in a variety of different ways. They've won shootouts. They've won close games. The Eagles just have a different offensive ceiling, I think, than the Niners because of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, it's interesting because the NFL is so much a week-to-week league, and every Sunday it feels like that game is the biggest thing in the world, and we can be so reactionary, but it's funny. Every reason that you lay out is exactly why I preferred the Eagles to the Niners in the preseason. I thought these are the two most stacked football teams, position group to position group, both sides of the football. Who do I have significantly more faith in at the quarterback position, which I do think is pretty essential if you're talking about going out there, winning a Super Bowl. Eventually, you are going to need elite quarterback play. Maybe the run game isn't going for you. Maybe the team opposite you just has such an elite quarterback themselves that they're going to put up 30-plus points on you. Somebody's got to go out there, put together a big-time drive with 2 minutes on the line, put together a big-time game. We haven't really seen anybody win without that in a long time. Like Nick Foles would be the exception in the last decade. And guess what? Nick Foles was playing like an elite quarterback. He found whatever was in him, pulled that out, and he was a top 10 quarterback for a couple of weeks at least. So that's a meaningful advantage for Philly. And I have been critical of Hurts this year. He is playing a bit banged up. I do think it's important to note that, but I think we've also seen some poor decision-making from him. Many more turnovers than we're used to. 8 picks through the first 6 weeks, or 7 weeks, I should say. We've seen him take longer to make decisions with the football. But in this game, he was just fantastic. He wasn't making as many plays with his legs, but he made a lot of big-time throws. And the athleticism of Philly's receivers just pops. A.J. Brown is the most imposing athletic receiver in football. It's really not that close. If you're talking about all-around athleticism, like Tyreek's, what makes him most dangerous is one athletic trait, that being game-breaking speed. But when you are talking about speed, physicality, size, leaping ability, A.J. Brown is just something different, man. You see it in this game. You also see it on the Julio touchdown. Like 3 of Hurts's 4 touchdowns in this game were basically just, I'm going to let my guy go up there and get it sort of moments, and that's a real asset to have. But it was great to see him playing like this. It is against a really bad Washington secondary, and I am a bit concerned that they let Howell throw for almost 400 yards, but I still think this is an insane front defensively. I do still believe in Hurts to play at a really high level, and this was a great performance to get him back on the right track. And at the end of the day, Purdy, we've had a bit of a roller coaster with. I didn't have enough faith in him coming into this year. Then through 5 games, he was playing really well. We started talking. This guy's a legitimately above average quarterback. He's a fringe top 10 sort of quarterback. He is going to have elite production in this situation, empowered by the brilliance of this system and the skill position talent around him. And it seemed like maybe the gap wasn't so overwhelmingly large that when the Niners were also playing better defensive football, they had such overwhelming skill position talent. Maybe they were just the best team. Maybe they didn't need exceptional quarterback play. But now that we have seen Purdy fall into some of his worst tendencies, that's a tiebreaker and some. So I agree with you. Philly is number one in the NFC for me. And on the other side of this, I mean, Howell did play a pretty good game overall. I would like to see Philly's pass defense be just a bit more dominant overall. We've seen a few of these games where they have the ball moved on them this year. We talked about some of that as playing with a lead, playing some softer coverages, but Howell did have a lot of success in this game, just straight up. At the same time, when it comes down to some of the big moments, he has a dumb interception big third and fourth down conversions. He has Terry McLaurin open back-to-back, misses him with 2 throws. The second one was catchable, but it was still like a diving tough catch where it didn't need to be. So I continue to think that he limits Washington. They're just not all that good. But this is an okay win for Philly. At the end of the day, they're winning week in, week out, with one exception. And that is something that everybody around the league is striving for. And maybe we were overly critical about some underwhelming wins through the first 5 weeks when, again, they are winning more reliably than anybody else. And at this point, by default of some of these other teams having really bad losses, having more glaring weaknesses exposed, they're sitting at the top of the mountain.
Yeah, and I just want to mention too, Carson, you talk about them struggling to defend against Howell. It is concerning in this one. You don't ever want to get dotted up by UNC quarterback Sam Howell. They did just add Kevin Byard, though, former All-Pro safety Kevin Byard. This is his first week there. They don't look great, but they are certainly way more talented than they were last week. And with the implementation of him in the defense, I mean, having Slay, Bradbury, and Byard back there is, I mean, you're just adding, it's icing on the cake at this point, man. This is it just feels like an all-pro defense. I think that's a huge addition for Philly, moving forward, when that was probably one of the biggest concerns on this team, and one of the biggest needs they had to address. I like Terrell Edmonds. He's a good tackler. They move off of him. Byard is going to start in his spot. I think that's a massive, massive upgrade and one of the biggest needs that they had for the rest of the season.
It's a great point, and the Philly defense, it's just the rich getting richer, man, over and over again. We've seen it through the draft. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, all in the first round in back-to-back years, making aggressive moves on the trade market, picking up Byard. I agree. It is the most loaded team in football, right up there with the Niners, but it's, as we would have said in the preseason, the quarterback play is the difference maker. After an up-and-down 8-week stretch for both Purdy and Hurts, things have played out more as we expected, and it's sort of the same story.
Everybody loves making sports predictions, but there's a new app putting a whole new spin on the game. Check out Vaulted, that's spelled V-L-T-E-D, Vaulted. It's an app where you can track sports predictions and participate in daily cash prize pools. You can also show off your sports knowledge against your friends, your buddies, by your boldest takes, challenging your friends to see who makes the best picks. You can challenge every week in my weekly Colin Cowherd NFL pool. Do that, win money, real money. All you have to do is answer questions and risk confidence points. VLTED, Vaulted app, Vaulted Challenge. So download the Vaulted app right now, VLTED. The QR code is right there on the screen. Prove you're smarter than your friends and get the Vaulted app today. Really easy and fun to play.
Let's talk about a team, Logan, that looks really good everywhere except for their quarterback play, and that is the Cleveland Browns, who played another team with playoff aspirations, the Seattle Seahawks, today. Seattle gets the win in this one. What did you take away here?
The Browns should have won this football game, man. I've never seen that before, Carson. I've never seen that. 2 minutes left. You throw an interception off of a guy's head. And I like how they called what did the broadcast say? I think they called it a soccer headbutt. It's called a header, guys. I don't know if you've heard about it. Ball goes off of Jamal Adams' head, interception by Julian Love, and they just steal this one late. Geno connects with Jackson Smith and Jigba for the TD. The Browns continue to impress me, Carson, with an XFL quarterback at the helm, PJ, and man, PJ was firing me up through the first 3 quarters, dude. I was going, man, PJ's making plays. Let's go.
PJ sucks, bro.
Yeah, PJ's, something like that.
You got a PJ Walker agenda. You want to know PJ Walker's stats this year, Logan? I'll read them out to you.
Not really.
Sub 50% completion, 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions through the
air.
PJ! That's your guy.
I think the Browns really miss Jacoby Brissett. I think even more so they miss Baker Mayfield.
Oh, wow.
There's just a leadership dynamic with the quarterbacks here, man. Baker's a guy that you can at least buy into every Sunday as a leader, in my opinion. A guy that, I don't know, I think that you could get guys to play for Baker, and I think that's a tangible thing that they've missed out on. To me, that's a really big difference. Seattle, I think, is a playoff team. I think they're good. They've got a lot of talent at the receiver position, man. Having Lockett, Metcalf, and Smith and Jigba now, where I think he's going to hit his stride in the second half of the season, is huge. And I thought the defense played a pretty good game. Jerome Ford eats a little bit. The receivers are getting open, but I really love Seattle's secondary, man. I think, again, Tariq Woolen drops an interception in this one, dude, right in in the grasp of his hands. PJ almost threw the game away there, too. Seattle's got, I think, probably the best secondary in football, man. I don't know if there's a team that's more loaded in that group, man. Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoon back there, they're stacked, man. Seattle's a good team, but I thought that Cleveland should have won this one, man. I mean, they're literally a first down away, and this game's cash, dude. They can run the clock out. They give this one away, but Seattle's sneaky, dude. Seattle's really sneaky. With Geno at the QB position, man, with the wideout talent, I could maybe see Seattle stealing a playoff game in the wild card round.
Yeah. My one concern with Geno right now, who I think had some awesome moments in this game and has had awesome moments really in every game this year. First of all, he leads them on the game-winning drive, clutch, but had some standout throws. Awesome job leading Lockett to the corner on that first touchdown. Some really nice throws on the run. Had a beautiful deep ball right in the breadbasket to DK. Some real standout positive moments. But I am worried about the mistakes from him. He's got 5 picks in the last 3 weeks, has a ball jumped on the sideline to DK, has another ball tipped up for an interception, and really, he should have thrown a pick 6 to end the game in this one. Just DB flat out dropped it, had a runway to the end zone. So those kind of painful turnovers we saw become more of an issue for Geno down the stretch last year. Now we're seeing that reappear. Took a big sack on a third down in the fourth quarter here too, where he was just holding on to the ball for a little bit too long. So if they want to go on a real run, they need Geno to be damn good. They need him to be a top 10 quarterback, and he certainly has that upside, and he certainly has those moments. He is one of the better creators in football. Good arm talent, good athlete, audacious. But again, like we were talking about with Purdy, he's got to find the right balance there, and right now there's just been a bit too much carelessness with the football. But yeah, for the Browns, I mean, they have had the worst quarterback play in football, period, point blank. They are last in net yards per attempt through the air. Again, they have 5 passing touchdowns to 11 interceptions from Deshaun and PJ combined this year. You're just not going to win football games like that. I mean, if you think about their losses, the Steelers, they let up 2 defensive touchdowns. The Ravens, obviously, they got dominated, but if they had good quarterback play, even that could have been a game. Like, the Ravens didn't have one of their more dynamic offensive performances. The Browns just couldn't move the ball and were turning it over like crazy. So at the end of the day, nothing really meaningfully changes for this team until they have good quarterback play. That's what we've been saying. PJ is really, really bad, and Deshaun continues to just have this ambiguous shoulder injury where apparently he's not going to be out too much longer, but every week they say he's going to play, and he doesn't, and when he does, he sucks.
I mean, why would you play, Carson? Contract's fully guaranteed. I mean, he has no incentive to step foot on the field, dude. It's
for honor.
Yeah. That's what he's about. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, dude, I mean, when he's been on the field, he's stunk too. If I'm Cleveland, again, you got to make these decisions quick. We got 2 days until the trade deadline. I'm calling up every team, and I'm asking them, what's up with your backup QB? Are you shopping them? If Washington is sold on Sam Howell the rest of the year, granted, I think they need him. I'd like to have a security blanket for Sam Howell. I'm bringing Jacoby Brissett back, man. He knows the system. I don't think you'd have to give up a whole lot to get him. Get him on the last, a rental. I don't want to play DTR. We've seen the PJ experiment. He's not a good enough backup to manage football games. Jacoby is, and even if you go 500, you're going to be in the playoff push in the final 3 weeks. He's going to manage you there. That's the goal at this point, to sneak in. And I think with Jacoby or a competent backup, they could do it. Their QBs aren't getting the job done, and I'm not willing on waiting for Deshaun to decide he wants to play football or expect him to play well down the stretch. I'm going out and I'm finding somebody before the deadline.
The Browns would be 6-1 with Jacoby Brissett. Like, it literally took disastrous mistakes from the offense versus both Pittsburgh and in this game for them to lose very close football games. So They should. I don't think they will because they've invested so much in Deshaun, and I imagine they think he'll be back soon enough. But it's disappointing to see a team with this much talent, even in spite of the devastating season-ending injuries, be in a position where they should be among the league's elite teams, and they just can't because at the most important position, they're flat out bad. But, Logan, you know who we would have said that about basically every week of the year, and yet they're sitting as a winning football team right now, is the New York Jets. So as we go through the rest of these games, we'll be a little quicker. I just want you to give me one takeaway on each. But let's start with the worst football game of the year, but it ended up being exciting. The battle for New York, Logan. Are you buying into the Jets at all now, sitting here at 4-3, having beaten the Giants today?
All right, hear me out. I mean, it would take them, I guess, leapfrogging the Bills. They'd have to leapfrog Buffalo. Or
I'm sure that'll happen.
They'd have to beat the Browns. I'm not buying into, I wouldn't put some money on the Jets doing it, but I can see the path, man. The Jets have the most heart of maybe any team in the NFL, and I love that, man. It's, there's just certain coaches, man, and certain teams with that culture where I think any given Sunday, I'd give you a 50-50 chance. I don't care about the matchup. Mike Tomlin is one of those guys with a stout defense that shows up and makes big-time plays. They can single-handedly swing games despite what you get out of your offense. The Jets, to me, are in that same boat, and I just love them, man. Saleh is a guy I would want to play for. That defense swarms, and they play hard every single game. I don't want to blow this out of proportion too much. Saquon Barkley somehow carries the ball 36 times in this game, and you're playing Tyrod Taylor. So it's not a huge win against them.
You're not even playing Tyrod for most of the game. You're playing Danny DeVito. I mean, they couldn't throw a forward pass, bro. He didn't have a completion until overtime, and they were 2 screens.
Like I said, it's not like a convincing win against a great opponent, but to win in this fashion, man, trailing 24 seconds left, you have to kick 2 field goals, a field goal to get into OT, and then you win in the stupidest way possible, a pass interference penalty that gets you down there. A win is a win, and the Jets never give up on any plays, man. It's like the Steeler quotient. The guys play hard until the final whistle, and every week the Jets just play hard, man. They got a lot of heart, and I'm super impressed, man, that the Jets were able to hang around. Again, not a great opponent, not a great game by any means. A win is a win in the National Football League, and the Jets will find a way to stay in games, man. I cannot believe this team is 4-3.
It is surreal, and you cannot discount that elite defense, elite coaching, and elite culture and effort week in, week out. That can give you a legitimately high floor. I mean, this is the same team that we saw start 7-4 last year, and sure, they lost 6 straight games to end it because they had one of the worst offenses and the worst quarterback in football, but they still won 7 games. This year, Zach is marginally better. He still sucks, though. I'm not going to lie. I understand that maybe there are people who get excited about the moments that he has, and I got to give him props, dude, because he had 2 big throws when they needed it to go to overtime. He is still wildly inaccurate. A lot of misses in this game. He still looks out of control at times. Like, he is leading them to consistently poor offensive production, but it was enough to beat the New York Giants, and I do really respect his competitiveness. He is going out there and he is embodying the mindset of this team, which is that they will not give up and they will do whatever it takes to win and lay it all on the line, and that is really cool. And I have a lot of respect for the fact that they are 4-3 right now. At the same time, they were 2 of 15 on 3rd down in this game, Logan. I legitimately thought that this was going to end in a tie. I didn't think that anybody was going to score in overtime. And when they do, it's not just on a PI call. It's on a PI call because the receiver is trying to fight back to a ball that is so badly underthrown, and the DB just runs full speed through him. Like, that's a vintage way to end this football game. But literally, the New York Giants, when you count sack yardage lost as passing yardage, had -9 passing yards in this game. In terms of positive completions, they had 7 yards. So that's not a serious football game. Like, not at all. Props to the Jets for winning, but no, I do not think they have a playoff push in them. I think they are going to face offenses that they just can't hang with. And I don't want to diminish a couple of the wins that they have, like what they did to the Bills and the Eagles. Those are awesome wins. They also took 4 turnovers from each of those teams. And yes, the Jets defense is awesome, and it can do that. But most of the time, it is not going to even have that level of just game-wrecking, takeaway production. And so when they play the Bills again, I think they're going to get crushed. When they play the Dolphins, I think they probably lose both of those. Even a team like the Chargers, I mean, they're sort of polar opposites. One team has all the talent and shiny pieces, but they just can't put it together in the big moments. The other team is just heart and defense. But if Herbert's playing well, it's really tough for them to compete in a game like that. So props to the Jets. They're a fine football team, but they still have a really low ceiling because Zach and this offense just still aren't good. Speaking of not good offense, Logan, we got to talk about your Steelers. You mentioned are the archetype for all heart, all defense, all coaching, finding a way to win. They lose to the Jags today, but you also have Kenny Pickett go down with a rib injury. How concerned are you about that?
Oh, I mean, I'm really worried if the Steelers have to play Mitch Trubisky. There have to be 64 quarterbacks better than Mitch Trubisky on the planet. There's no way.
Tommy DeVito was in a football game today. He is a third stringer in a perfect world, to be fair. But
they had to pick that guy up from the mob off the street, man. Like, who is that? Like, whose dad did they bribe? You know,
that's what I would have said about industry plant Tyson Bagent, but he's better. He's
For
not
real.
good.
At this point, I don't know, man, and I cannot believe I'm saying this as a Pittsburgh Steeler fan because I've wanted this man cut for the past 3 seasons. I think I'd rather start Mason Rudolph at this point. Yeah, right? Mitch Trubisky sucks, dude. Mitch stinks. It doesn't make a huge difference because I think we're limited, man, by our offensive coordinator. I'm just disheartened, man. I'm disappointed. We have no chance at winning football games with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, and I don't want to watch a football game in which he has to play and Matt Canada has to call plays. A positive takeaway, we'll flip this on its head. George Pickens, all the hype about him is real. Like, every single week, he just stuns me with how special he is. The separation he creates on routes, the after-the-catch ability, the one-on-one activity, the vertical, the focus on the ball, the body control, the hand control. George Pickens is a bona fide number 1 in this league, but he's so damn limited by his offensive coordinator and his quarterback, he can't shine. Every single week, get that man the football, man. The Steelers need to game plan more stuff for him. Even though, I mean, he touches the rock a decent amount in this one. Pickens has the talent to be a number 1 guy. He's got the mentality. He's got all the tools. I'm astounded by him, and with a better quarterback and a better offense, I think he'd really be shining. On the other side, Carson, I think the Jags are really good. And Travis Etienne is one of the best running backs in all of football. Maybe number 2. That might be crazy to say. I don't know. I mean, I think he's top 5 at this point. He's damn good, man. Jags have won 5 straight. Etienne is 4th in yards from scrimmage this season. It's hard to game plan for. He's great running the ball. He's great out of the backfield. I think Brandon McManus deserves a ton of credit for this one, too. Boots 2 50-yarders in this one. And the Jags' defense is slowly gaining momentum and steam, man. I mentioned this about the Lions. Defenses are the group that trends upwards throughout the season. They statistically get better as the season goes along. And the Jags are hitting their stride at the right time. Again, another win against a not so impressive offense. It doesn't matter. I mean, they've been consistently getting better week to week. I really like the Jags, man. I like them more than the Chargers. Them and the Bengals, I think, is a real conversation. They're on my playoff, fringe contenders list right now, and they're slowly getting better week to week. The Jaguars have continued to impress me. This one, again, it's against Pittsburgh. I think the Steelers are a little bit overrated by the record and how they're being talked about this year. But a good win for Jacksonville, and they've continued to get better week to week, man.
Yeah, this felt like another Jags win this year, where you're just kind of like, all right, they took care of business.
Yep.
I don't really think they do anything exceptionally well at this point. I think it's a good overall defense. I think it's a good front. I don't know that they're really elite anywhere. And offensively, T-Law has played well this year. This game, you have just a terrible pick in the red zone, in the end zone, into triple coverage. So moments like that obviously aren't great. He hasn't had too many, but he's just played well for the most part. They're a good football team. They are. I can't put them in that contender tier, but for Pittsburgh, I don't know, man. I think that they can win games with Mitch Trubisky. I don't know about a lot of them. Look, dudes. Look, pal. Look, buddy. Mitch Trubisky has a winning record in his
Mitch
career.
Trubisky sucks. He sucks.
He does suck. Can I tell you something, Logan? You're not going to like to hear this. Kenny Pickett sucks.
Kenny Pickett does not suck.
Yes, he does.
I hate when people say that. Kenny Pickett does not suck.
What does Kenny do at an average starter level right now?
I think Kenny is being severely hampered by Canada. I think they need to open the offense. I think they need to let him make calls and plays at the line of scrimmage.
What does he do at an average NFL starter
Kenny's got
level
huge
right now?
nuts, and when the game is in the balance, it doesn't matter. He can step his game up, and he can make big-time plays, man. I think...
So he has dog. He's above average
dog. It's the Baker Mayfield quotient. No, he's not super talented. No, he doesn't have a rocket arm, but he can make plays at crucial times. And he can open up his eyelids and he cuts them off, man. He just stares. He stares losing in the face, and he doesn't let it happen, man. He's clutch. Kenny's not great, but I think you can win games with Kenny. You can't win games with Mitch Trubisky. I don't believe it.
You literally can. He has a winning record, and let me tell you why. It's because for the most part, he's not going to make back-breaking mistakes. He did in this one because he had to play from behind. You never make Mitch Trubisky play from behind. When he does that, yeah, things are going to go south. What are you so baffled by?
Hold up. I'm actually getting this number because StatMuse wants to lie to me right now. I want to know Mitch's record as a starting QB for the Steelers. He's
2-4. We're including this game.
If we're including, he's 2-4.
Okay. I mean, look, man. Kenny's not playing at a high level. Kenny threw what should have been an easy pick right into the hands of a DB today.
Kenny doesn't suck, man. Kenny doesn't suck.
In the scope of NFL starting quarterbacks, he is certainly bottom 10. So he is a very low-end starting quarterback, and Trubisky is going to be a slightly lower-end quarterback. I don't know that it makes a meaningful difference. How many games have the Steelers won because of their quarterback play this year?
Well, I mean, not overall quarterback play, but I mean, Kenny has gone on game-winning drives, 5 times over the last 16 games? That matters, to me. The clutch aspect. He does something at a high level. He's not scared when the game's on the line. He can make drives happen. And I just want to note, the majority of those drives have been engineered by Kenny making changes at the line of scrimmage. He's smart like that, and I think the Steelers could open a dynamic of their offense that isn't there right now if Matt Canada would relinquish some of his pride and ego and let Kenny make decisions at the line. I think that really matters. He's not great. Mason Rudolph is better than Mitch Trubisky, and you heard it here. The Steelers should play Mason Rudolph. I don't like Mason. I don't like Mitch. I don't love Kenny. They all suck to a degree, but Mason sucks less than Mitch Trubisky, and that's who they should play moving forward.
That's an interesting take. I don't know if I agree, but all I'm saying is Pittsburgh has the number 27 scoring offense coming into this game. They were 4-2. They had 3 points in the first half, which Kenny basically played.
We should have had 6.
Of.
We should have had 6.
Oh, wow! Well, wasn't that a shootout for the Steelers and Kenny?
I'm just saying, they did take 3 points at the end of the first half. They called offsides on our offensive guard. Not only was he not offsides, how the hell do you call offsides on an offensive player, man? I don't know how that happens. I think the refs took, because Boswell makes a 56-yard field goal. They take it back. He misses from 61 yards. They did take 3 points. It's not like it's going to swing the entire game. I think we lose this one regardless without Kenny. But they did take 3 points from us, bro.
All right, well, listen, man. I can't believe that you would doubt the Steelers as if they didn't win 9 games with Mason and Duck Hodges back there. They're going to win some games. They are. They're going to be close to 500 this year. It's going to be weird. It's going to be ugly, but it's going to happen. Trubisky or anybody else. They can put you back there, bro. Not really, but so to speak. NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is celebrating with an unbeatable offer. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for throwing down $5 on the NBA. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You'll start the season with an instant dub.
And with DraftKings parlays, everyone's got a shot at even bigger basketball wins. String together multiple bets from the same game or build your parlay across multiple games for a shot at making your payday even sweeter.
Basketball is more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code NERDS. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5 only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code NERDS. The crown is yours. Let's talk about some more exciting young quarterback talents, though, Logan. We saw the number 1 and number 2 picks from the draft face-off today, C.J. Stroud versus Bryce Young. What did you take away from that matchup?
This is the most impressed I've been with Bryce Young in a game in his rookie season. He was under incredible duress in this game. He has been all year long. This is not a good Carolina offensive line. He gets sacked 6 times. He just had to throw and evade a ton of pressure in this game, extend plays, and I thought he did a really good job of that. They couldn't establish the run. Chuba Hubbard has 15 carries for 28 yards, and yet he goes 22 of 31 for 235 yards and a TD. He just looked more confident. He looked more poised. He was in control. And I thought he was dictating things at the line of scrimmage a little more. Again, changing things on the fly, calling hot routes, calling audibles. It's not an incredible game, but it's the best game that I've seen from Bryce in his young career. It's his first career win, and it snaps a 56-game losing streak for Carolina when trailing in the fourth quarter. So not anything spectacular or over the top, but it's the best and most poised game that I've seen from Bryce Young this season.
Agreed. And he had a couple of nice moments of some creation. Like he had a really great throw to Adam Thielen where he's evading pressure. He makes it off his back foot, threw some nice balls with zip into relatively tight windows. And at the end of the day, he drove them down the field from their own 10 to win it. It was pretty much all checkdowns, but he remained composed. He did what he had to do. He just looked less overwhelmed in this game. And that's not to say that there weren't spots where he was rushed, and I do feel really bad for him. He takes 6 sacks in this game. Like, the line sucks. The weapons in the receiving game suck. They can't run the football. I do think that Bryce, in a vacuum, is 3 of 3 among the rookie quarterbacks. I think Stroud has been playing at a completely different level in spite of really tough circumstances at times. I think he's a more impressive athlete. I think he's been more accurate overall, but I think he's also been more composed. He's had more big play upside. Like, he's just been better in basically every way. And Richardson we haven't seen as much of, but just the athleticism alone made him an effective quarterback. Bryce bears responsibility for just not playing well this year and being overwhelmed at times and not having the athletic traits to make up for some of the stuff that goes wrong with him. But he is also playing in a horrible football situation. I think he's the lowest ceiling of the 3, and I am lowest on him right now, but I do want to see more from him. And he outplayed CJ today. This was a very mad game from CJ. He did have one unbelievable throw to Noah Brown into a super tight window, and he just didn't really hit on the big stuff today that has, to some extent, defined him this year. He's been good overall, but particularly with some of those deep balls, those 20-plus yard completions, he's been really great, and those just weren't there today. So Bryce outplayed him. It was really good to see, and it was good to see the Panthers get a win.
And I wanted to say that about Carolina, too. You make a great point. I thought they did a really good job of shrinking the field in this one and taking away the deep ball. That's been a huge aspect of Houston's offense. If it's Nico Collins, if it's Tank Dell on big, deep shots, that's how they get a lot of their offense. And the Panthers did a phenomenal job of making CJ take those checkdowns and throw the ball underneath. But, I mean, Carson, I think Bryce Young might be 4 of 4 QBs after what we saw out of the Mayonnaise Man today.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about that. How about that Will Levis, Logan?
The Mayonnaise Man himself.
Yeah, would you like to talk about him, or are you just going to call him the Mayonnaise Man?
He's the Mayonnaise Man. Dude, what the heck? I mean, were we all just collectively wrong on Will Levis?
Sheesh.
Arm strength out the ass, man. I'm talking Jamarcus Russell off his knees kind of arm strength, dude. And he's not afraid to use it. Like, Levis's presence really stands out. He just looked confident, poised, ready. Like he just had, a coffee with some mayonnaise before he took the field, dude. He's got some crazy overthrows in this one, like comically overthrown balls, but he throws a really pretty deep ball, and it's just rare that you see a QB that can throw 50 to 60-yard bombs this effortlessly. Wow. I mean, I was stunned by his deep balls. The running game was going too. I want to see Levis do this when Derrick Henry isn't eating as much, against less stacked boxes and stuff like that, he goes for 101 yards. But when you're talking about rookie debuts, it's one of the most impressive ever. Up there with Cam Newton, up there with RG3. And in NFL history, he is the 4th quarterback in NFL history to throw 4 touchdowns in his debut. The other 3, Marcus Mariota, Norm Van Brocklin, and Fran Tarkenton. Will Levis, the mayonnaise man, joins the list. Wow. I'm stunned, dude. His arm was off the page in this one, Carson. And I really hope that he can be Tennessee's franchise QB. Damn, they've been searching for a while. But he looks so much better than Ryan Tannehill, dude.
Not even a question. And Tannehill had been legitimately awful this year. You think about 2020 Tannehill, who was super efficient, who was really productive, empowered by just dominant Derrick Henry, loaded boxes. I think that version of Derrick Henry was one of the most valuable running backs of the 21st century, just in how he reshaped defenses. But 2019 Tannehill was very similar, just super efficient play-action quarterback. And then he's just taken a nosedive. This year, we saw 2 touchdowns to 6 picks. He was averaging under 200 yards a game. Of course, it's an injury that gets Will Levis the start, but Tannehill was not playing like a starting caliber quarterback, especially when he's 35 years old. We saw them go to Malik Willis in the previous draft. That definitely doesn't look like it's going to be the answer.
Did you see the fumble he lost at the start of this game?
Yes. And let me just say one more thing. Unless it's Taysom Hill, never go into a game with a 2-quarterback approach, okay? It's weird, and it doesn't work. And Levis was just far and away so much better. They only used Willis for a couple of rush plays, but you said it, man. That arm talent, the touchdown off his back foot,
yeah, dude,
was crazy, bro. That was like Josh Allen, Mahomes, Herbert. Very few dudes are making that throw. Not planted. Like, that was nuts.
60 yards, relaxed, dude.
Yeah, and all of the deep balls, like, first of all, he certainly has the arm strength to get it there, but I also thought that his accuracy was good, his touch was good, and overall, I thought that his timing was very good today. Yeah, there was a little too much juice on a few balls, but he did do a good job of just connecting on some of the underneath stuff with good timing with his receivers. And let me tell you something. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a whole lot happier playing with Will Levis. The Titans have, this entire era, been limited to some extent by their quarterback play. Even when Tannehill was the best version of himself, he couldn't go out there and win either sort of big-time shootout games that we're talking about. He couldn't create out of structure. Levis is a guy who has that potential, and I was wildly impressed and excited by this debut, and I would love for him to have a good old-fashioned prove-him-wrong story, man. Nobody got shat on more throughout the late stages of the draft process. A guy who was hyped up beyond what was justified, and then obviously a really rough draft slide for him today too. I thought that this was an awesome performance from him. On the opposite side of this, though, in terms of quarterbacks, Logan, we did see Desmond Ridder just flat out benched for Taylor Heineke. ODU legend Taylor Heineke, so I know you're a bit of a fan of him. Real quickly, what are your thoughts on that?
I think the Falcons are just flat out better with Taylor Heineke. We said this at the start of the season, Carson, that maybe if they played Heineke, we'd like the Falcons a little more with their surrounding talent. I know Ridder was a question mark, but he's had really one good game this entire year. He has a horrible one last week. He loses 3 fumbles in catastrophic fashion. The bottom line is, in this one, the tape that we have to go off of, they have 5 drives with Heineke. They score 4 times, 2 field goals, 2 TDs. And the final drive where they have a turnover on downs, the ball literally just goes through the hands of Van Jefferson. So they were successful every single drive with Heineke. In 7 drives with Ridder, they score once. That's a field goal. You have a punt, and then you have 5 punts, and then you have a Ridder fumble lost. They were just flat out better with Heineke. He's fearless. He's more aggressive. He's going to sling the ball downfield and try to make plays. He's more creative. He's the better athlete, and he's got the better arm. He's just the better quarterback. And I don't know what it is, man. We have a ton of tape on Taylor Heineke as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. He's better than a backup. Or maybe he's like the best. Maybe he's the best backup that you could have in that range. It's just, I don't get it. I don't get why it just feels like he's been disrespected and neglected. I would like Heineke as my backup, and if I had him as a interim starter, I wouldn't be mad at all. But the bottom line is he's better than Desmond Ridder, and he gives the Falcons a better chance to win football games at QB. Like, I don't know, he invigorated me a little bit. I was fired up watching Heineke. That's what he does. And I think the Falcons could make a playoff push. It's going to be a stinker of a race in the NFC South. Watching the Bucs, the Saints, and the Falcons all try to make the push. But Heineke gives the Falcons the best opportunity to make that playoff push.
I think I agree. I do think that it's not a huge difference between the two. Heineke is a better pure passer to me. He's a better
He's a
arm
playmaker,
talent.
man.
He's more creative. He is a playmaker. Now, that does come with a fair share of turnovers. We've seen that in the last couple of years. But, yeah, he has his good moments. I don't think either guys are real starting-level quarterbacks. I think they're both high-end backups. Ridder is certainly a better athlete, but he is very limited as a passer. And bottom line, this Falcons offense has sucked with some of the most impressive toys and talents in terms of skill position guys. They were the number 29 scoring offense. They were having another dud in this one. So I'm with the change. I think that it makes them a slightly better football team. But you mentioned sort of the race to the top of the sewer in the NFC South. The Saints, in terms of win-loss record, are now at the top of that group, beating the Colts. What did you take away from that?
Finally! Thank you, New Orleans. Like, oh, this is what I've been waiting for, man. All the skill talent. You talk about that with Atlanta. First of all, oh my goodness, dude. They threw a pass to Kyle Pitts, and Drake London also caught a ball. Phenomenal. I've never seen that before. I've never seen that before. New Orleans has so much skill talent. It's just frustrating that they can't get the lid off the end zone, man. There's just an invisible barrier that they can't pass unless they put Taysom Hill on the field, which still remains so stupid. But, hey, if it works, put Taysom Hill in the red zone every single time, man.
Yeah, it wasn't stupid today. He was hooping.
No, exactly. But Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, it's like, what else do you have to get in the end zone? Rashid Shaheed, burners, man.
Yeah.
Finally, they do it. This is what I conceptualized in the preseason with this offense. I didn't pick them to win the NFC South because I preferred the Bucs defense, but I expected the Saints offense to be better. That's been the one limiting factor of this team through the start of this season is they just couldn't put points on the board. They couldn't finish the job in the red zone. They do it today. That's what they got to do to move forward in games. And if it takes playing Taysom Hill, Carson, so be it. Put him out there more, man. Derek Carr plays better in this one. Again, it's a stinky, stinky NFC South, but the Saints have the weapons and they've got a good enough defense and still arguably probably the best quarterback in this division. I see a way for the Saints to get it done, and they've got a hell of a home field advantage in the Superdome too, man. It's a hard place to play. I like New Orleans to win the South probably, man, over Tampa Bay. They're just better, and Baker sucks.
Yeah, your boy Baker really fell off a cliff there, didn't he? Could have seen that one coming. I don't think it's between the Saints and the Bucs. I think it's between the two teams that are tied at 4-4, the Saints and the Falcons. My opinion about this division has changed a few times already this year. I do think that I like the Saints the most right now. Quarterback play does matter. They're all very limited offenses. Very limited. But best quarterback in the division. And they do have skill position talent that they can more reliably utilize. And you did see the depth of that group today. Taysom with 119 total yards and a touchdown. We saw it in all three phases, baby. He was doing his thing, doing his little gadget guy thing, and it was fun. And then Rashid Shaheed just has that game-breaking speed. 3 catches for 153 yards. That Randy Moss stat line if he also had 3 touchdowns. But really nice deep ball threat. And then Thomas and Olave, obviously. And Kamara has looked really good. Today he was fantastic. So he's still a guy who they can rely on in a high-volume role. You work Jamal Williams back into things. Look, I don't think it's a good offense. They haven't produced as a good offense whatsoever up until this week, but might it be the best of a weak bunch with a pretty good defense? Probably. I think that I would bet on that. Let's talk about Dolphins-Pats, Logan. What did you take away from this game?
Patriots stink. I don't really think we learned anything new in this game, if I'm being honest with you, man.
Love that.
The Pats just suck.
Yeah. No, I appreciated how predictable this game was, because we've seen some wild upsets in recent weeks. Today, obviously, a couple with the Niners and the Chiefs going down. This was just good old-fashioned. You get a terrible Mac interception. The Patriots put up 218 yards. That's what I paid for. You even get a little bit of extra garnish with Tua being mostly really, really good. He has that one
with
dumb
the one bad pick,
though.
man.
Tyreek and Waddle are absolutely absurd. This is just everything that you paid for. Perfect, nice and simple. I love it. I have zero takeaways. Both these teams were exactly who I thought they would be today. Okay, how about Cowboys-Rams, Logan? What did you take away?
Dude, I might hit the trifecta on these last 3 games. They are who we thought they were with the Cowboys, too. Here come the Cowboys, man. They're going to climb up the mountain, baby. We got to get the convincing win over a bad team out of the way. No disrespect to the Rams. I think they are on like my dead last cutoff teams that are going to miss out on the playoffs in the NFC. They're not a horrible team by any means, but they're not good. Here come them Cowboys, man. Everything's going right. Dak gets 300-plus yards, 4 TDs. CD eats 12 catches, 160, 12 TDs. Or 12 TDs. That'd be remarkable in one game.
That'd be crazy.
2 TDs. And they're making other big plays. You get the classic Stafford pick 6, the short on the out route to Cooper Kupp. Come on, man. Blocked punt for a safety. Cavante Turpin with a big return. And Dak throws a pick, but Stafford immediately gives it right back with a fumble. I was impressed with the defense. They really stopped a volatile and explosive air attack. They've been averaging 270 passing yards per game. Before this one, they hold Stafford to 162 yards, 13 completions, and 2 turnovers. Look, man, we know with this team. They got talent. Dak, Pollard, CeeDee Lamb. They got a great defense. 46% pressure rate on the season. Best in the NFL. Do it against some contenders. How about you, Dallas? They're going to do this. They're going to beat bad teams convincingly. They're going to have some really nice wins. They got to build the momentum back up before their bubble pops, Carson. So I'm just waiting for the inevitable drop-off against a really good team from the Cowboys. But go ahead, man. Let's build some momentum. It's probably going to be next week against the Eagles.
Here's what I will say in their defense. Their losses, by comparison, are looking a little bit less egregious now. The Niners one was terrible, and the Cardinals one was really bad. All I'm saying is the Lions have now had a really bad loss to a great football team, sure, but the Niners were a great football team. Both they and Dallas just got their asses kicked by a better football team. But now the Niners have had 3 really bad losses. The Eagles have had the 1 loss. We talked about the Chiefs. Like, everybody is flawed. Do I view Dallas as a top-tier contender? No. Am I still confident that they are a second-tier contender? I do think they belong there with how loaded the football team is in terms of talent. And Dak has looked better in the last 2 weeks, particularly this. This was the best game, and I think that that is going to be a key component. He hasn't been the best version of himself this year. If he can be, that's when they start really having the potential to make some noise. They finished some drives in this one. Just some good little things to hold on to. But yeah, we've seen them dominate subpar football teams. I mean, basically all of their wins have been that, with the exception of the Chargers, who they just sort of snuck by. That isn't going to sell me. And the Rams, I fear, just are not good. They're so reliant on Stafford. That defense that was overachieving a bit after losing really all of its best players, except for Aaron Donald in the offseason, has regressed. They can't run the ball right now without Kyron Williams. They struggle to do so in this game. So, bit of a bummer for them. Solid Cowboys win. How about Ravens-Cardinals, Logan? Any takeaways from that, or just they are who we thought they were?
No, they are who we thought they were. Shout out former Cardinals coach Dennis Green. The Baltimore Ravens will deliver you a harsh reality about your football team. I know this ends up being 31-24. Ravens smacked them in the jaw for most of this game. A lot of it came in garbage time in the fourth quarter. Carson, they had 0 yards in the second half until the start of the fourth quarter. The Cardinals did, that is. I was honestly surprised they were able to move the ball that well that late. A little bit of resilience, but for most of this game, it was Baltimore dominating Arizona. And again, I don't think Arizona's going to be completely bad off. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in football, because I'm hearing that Kyler Murray is going to come back at some point. It seems like he's getting healthier. So I think Arizona's going to be better once he gets back. But right now, no James Conner. It's been really rough offensively, and Josh Dobbs has looked the part as one of the worst starters in the league the past couple weeks.
Yeah, big Josh Dobbs fall off, man. Really disappointing stuff. I don't know what happened to the Josh we saw in the first few weeks. That was fun. I miss that Josh Dobbs, and I miss those Arizona Cardinals, because he had a couple terrible mistakes in this game. The Ravens are really good all around. I agree. The final score doesn't really tell the story here. They were in complete control of this football game. My takeaway is just that Lamar continues to take great care of the football, and he is the most polished and efficient version of himself as a passer that we've seen. He has an interception percentage of 1.3 on the year. That's right, 1 in every 80 throws, basically. That's like peak Alex Smith level of taking care of the ball, and he's completing 70% of his passes. So we've just never really seen him doing quite as good of a job in that role. And I do think he's making a push to really be back in the conversations as a top 3 quarterback in football.
Oh, yeah.
I think we'll need to see some more dynamic performances, right? Last week was the masterclass. This week was just okay. But if you were going to lose to the Cardinals, it was going to have to be because of some catastrophic mistakes, and they avoided that in this one. So the Ravens, this is really ho-hum for them. I think they're definitely a top 2 team in the AFC, and the defense was really good for most of this game, and that's an elite defense for sure. All right, Logan, let's wrap up with the Sunday night game. Chargers-Bears. What did you take away?
The Chargers can beat a bad football team, and I kind of like Brandon Staley with his beard, man. I wasn't really rocking with the clean-shaven Brandon Staley tonight. Yeah,
rugged.
Man.
You like him a bit more rugged.
Yeah, like a little caveman-esque. Herbert looked good in this one. 3 TDs, nearly 300 yards. It's pretty effortless. I mean, the Chargers can handle business against bad teams, and they've got a ton of receiving talent. I continue to be astounded at the way the Chargers use the short passing game to supplement the rushing game. It's one of my favorite things that they do, that Kellen Moore does, and I think more teams need to adopt it. Now, they're not going to be able to do it to the level that the Chargers do, because I think that Austin Eckler unlocks that game even more. He's so good with the ball in his hands out of the backfield, and he just breaks the game in that way. But I think more teams that struggle to run the football the way the Chargers do should adopt it. If the Steelers are having a bad rushing game, they should switch it up and do that. Chargers are good. They're okay. And the Bears stink. Tyson Bagent is probably not an NFL quarterback. Herbert looked really good in this one. It's what I've been waiting for. I want to see it against better teams. Herbert really has yet to do this against a real contender this year.
No takeaways. The Bears are awful. The Chargers still can't run the football. Herbert's really good. The end. That's going to do it, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you enjoyed this week of football. We will be back in a couple days talking some NBA. I am going to be at Bills-Bengals next Sunday, which is looking like it's going to be a pretty big game with how the Bengals have started to trend back in the positive direction. That should be lots of fun. So if you want more NFL and NBA content, you can always subscribe to the Volume YouTube page to get our full shows with video. You can also listen to the podcast across audio platforms. You can follow us across social media, TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. You can join our Discord. That is at the Linktree. Across our social media bios, if you just want to talk football, basketball with us, be part of our community. And you can check out our merch. We've got hats, we've got shirts, we've got hoodies, we've got the flags here behind us, all of that. Also at our Linktree or at thevolume.com. And with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I have been Carson Bremer.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.